Hey everybody, I'm so excited for our team call tonight. We have a guest joining us, Trent Steele. So excited. And it's just going to be fun. We can get to know him a little bit together, but I tell you, Trent, we met in December before one of Carl's comedy shows,
Yep.
and I haven't stopped thinking about our conversation. So there you go. You made such an impression on me, but I
Um,
know, how it's the mission. It's like that gets into your heart. And honestly, it's one of those things you can't not do something about. And so I've just had it on my heart so much to help in some way with your organization, antipredatorproject.org. You guys can check it out. And just wanted to like hear about it, hear what you're about, and then we can kind of brainstorm about how we can collaborate somehow to maybe, assist with some care packages and that kind of thing to just make the people that you're rescuing feel valued and important and loved and cared about and remembered and not forgotten. So to me, that is what Arbonne is all about. We actually, as a company, did more for the Haiti earthquake, victims than the Red Cross. Built, hundreds of homes, and have helped build orphanages and sponsored kids. And currently we've raised 750,000 for Operation Underground Railroad. We're headed for 1 million. That's the goal. So this is what Arbonne is. This is who we are, and it's just so exciting because this is something that our personal team can kind of take on and collaborate with. And just wanted to, I don't have all the answers, but we're gonna like figure it out, and it's gonna be amazing. Thank you for your time. Trent
absolutely.
is joining us from Pennsylvania today. And yes, just take it away. We would love to know about you, what your background is,
Gonna
and the
drop
mission.
a bed in the hotel room here.
Yeah.
Listen, I first of all thank you so much for inviting me to be here tonight. I can't tell you how thankful I am, and how thankful I am that people care about our mission and what we're doing enough to make phone calls like this and say, hey, do you have time? So I don't know what I'll let everybody ask their own questions when I'm done if I don't cover anything. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and what we do and kind of what we've got going on this year. So I myself come from the intelligence world. I come from a counterintelligence background. I um I started off in the early 2000s doing counterterrorism work, mass casualty threat assessment events, things like that. I worked specifically on the mass transit system in Miami-Dade County. It was our job to assess and make sure that there were no 9/11 style attacks carried out there. From there, I moved into the human intelligence world where I became a interview and interrogation specialist. And I was attached to a team that would travel around and interview and talk to high value targets. I left that world for a little while and got into social work, which is where I got into this. I got into working in foster care, and my job there was to work as the independent living coordinator. So I worked with kids and taught them how to balance their checkbooks and sign a lease and do all the fun adulting stuff all of us have to do every day. And it was through that experience that I met some young ladies who had very powerful stories. I met a young lady whose trafficker made her tattoo his name on her eyelids. I met another girl who had a brand on her back from a coat iron. And I met another girl who went through hours and hours and hours of reconstructive surgery because her trafficker beat her so bad that he shattered like 18 or 19 bones in her body. So I started coming across those stories, and I started talking to my wife and saying, man, this is impactful. This is something that I think I think with the people I know and my background, I think we might be able to do something about. So it was actually a perfect storm of events how I got into this. I obviously, when you go from working as a defense contractor to a social worker, the pay cut is substantial. So I picked up a part-time job working as a private investigator for a firm in Hialeah, Florida, while I was also working as a social worker. So at the same time that I had all of these experiences with these kids in foster care, I'm sitting in the office one day, uh, and we had a big office and not far from Marlins Park. If anybody's familiar with Miami and where the old Orange Bowl and the Marlins play, and we also ran a training and a security school next door, and we had a big badge painted on the door. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there on a Saturday, and the secretary comes back and gets me, and she says, "Hey, listen, I've got a young lady in the lobby. She's very upset, and she just wants to talk to somebody." So I said, "That's fine." I said, I'm the only one here. Send her back." So I'll never forget it. This girl, she was a Ukrainian girl. And this was going on over 10 years ago now, about 12 years ago. She comes in and she's crying. She's got a very thick accent. And she tells me this story about how she went to a job fair in her country. And these people had promised her to bring her to America and to help her family get here and to get her a job in their nightclubs and their bars and their hotels. And they basically sold her on the American dream. And as somebody who spent a great deal of my career protecting the American dream, I take that personal when somebody sells somebody on that. Uh, Somebody picks her up at the airport. When she gets here, they help her get her visa. They help her get her travel documents. They've got lawyers on the payroll, so everything was legal and above board. So when she comes through customs, there's no problems. Uh, a van shows up to pick her and about four other girls up. The minute the van door shuts, a guy turns around, puts a gun in her face, and says, "Listen, I need your documents, your ID. You work for us now." And she says, "I told him, this is America. Cops aren't like they are in our country. I don't have to do this." And he says, "You know what? You're right." And he opens the door and says, "You know what? You're free to go. But before you do," he hands her a picture of her mom. He hands her a picture of her son back home, and says, "Listen, you get out of this car. We know where they live." And so she got back in the car. Um, she kept checking her watch the entire conversation, saying, "Listen, I've got to go. They're going to notice I'm gone." And this was the first experience I'd really ever had with anything like this. So I said, "Listen, I think I can help you." I said, "But you got to call me." So I gave her my business card. I said, "Please call me and I can help you." And I let her leave the office that day, and I should have never done that. I realize that now, but it was the first time I've ever done with this. And so she left, and I watched her walk away, and I never heard from her again. And to this day, that haunts me every day. I wonder what happened to that girl. And so literally about 2 weeks after that, I went back home that day, and I told my wife, I said, you know, between the stuff that I'm seeing at the foster care agency and this incident, I said, I think this is really something that we need to try to do something about. And so we started this nonprofit uh, about 2 weeks after that. And we specialize in human trafficking cases, missing children, and it started with us, just wanting to give back. And we worked a case here and a case there for the first few years, and it's just kind of grown now to the point to where um, I left foster care and went back into government contracting work as a counterintelligence investigator, and to make a little bit more money, because most of these expenses up until recently have all been covered out of my own personal pocket. Um, and so uh, I resigned from that mm, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, to focus on running this business full time and running the nonprofit full time, and then obviously my two other businesses that kind of keep everything Sorry, somebody called. And so what started as us working a case, you know, 2 or 3 cases a month maybe, is grown to now, last I checked, we've got 45 cases in 15 states and 5 countries. As you can see from the backdrop here in my hotel room, I'm currently in Pennsylvania. We've been doing interviews with the FBI on a missing 14-year-old girl all day. You'll see this on the news here in the coming weeks. We recently located a young lady that has been missing for 10 years from West Palm Beach, over a little over a decade, actually, from West Palm Beach. We found her in Mexico, where she was being held captive by a guy that trafficked her there. She's got 2 kids that were conceived via sexual assault. So we're currently, we were able to get her out of there. We've got her at a safe location at the U.S. Embassy. We're hope to have her back here on American soil in the next 10 to 15 days. We'll see how long it takes us to get the paperwork done. So we average depending on the year, we average probably between 15 to 20 missing children cases a year that we work, and maybe somewhere between 8 to 9 human trafficking cases. And then we've got ongoing cases that just kind of go from year to year to year. One of our kind of things that we've gotten pigeonholed into the last several years is organized crime. We've become kind of the resident experts in South Florida on organized crime and the Russian mob, the cartels out west. So we've got a lot of long-term investigations that are stemming from those expertise areas. So that's kind of an overview of what we do, and everything that we do nationwide. We have a very good working relationship with law enforcement. Like I said, we're up here with the FBI right now. Please, any questions that anybody has, please feel free to shoot.
Yeah, I just had a question. So I heard that the average age of girls being trafficked is 13. Is that what you're finding? Or what's your
So
average?
they say the average age of entrance into prostitution is 12 to 13. Honestly, we've seen it kind of be all over the map. From the cases that we get, a lot of them that we see, we kind of wind up with what we call the forgotten demographic, right? So the minors get a lot of attention from law enforcement, obviously, the 12, 13, 14, all the way up to 18. We wind up getting a lot of the girls from that 18 to like 26 demographic, because the argument is made that, well, once you hit that age, you have to ask for help. You can't, whereas a minor can't consent, a minor can't agree to any of this. But then you turn 18, and all of a sudden now it's almost like, well, you can't be exploited anymore because you're 18. And so we wind up with a lot of cases like that. I'll give you an example. We're working a case right now, and we're trying to find the girl. The family calls us and says, listen, our sister, we think something's going on with our sister. The last contact we had with her was about 6 weeks ago. She said she met a bunch of guys online. They took her out to Arizona. They were forcing her to perform webcam shows, and then they were taking all of her money and holding her in a bedroom, and they wouldn't let her leave. But at the time, the only thing they had were her social media handles and one photograph that was taken within the last 6 months. So I happened to be out in Arizona on another case at that time, and this was just early January this year. And we went past the address the family thought that she might be staying. Nobody was there. We went past there with the local police department. Nobody was there. It didn't look like anybody had been at that home for quite a while. So I called the family and I said, listen, we don't have a ton to go on. This address that you gave us, we're not getting much results. We had our OSINT people do a deep dive into the internet. We couldn't find her anywhere on any known websites, but we just got access to a new piece of software that is a true game changer. That this company was, they were a lifesaver to let us have access to it for free. And so we got access to that, and I took this girl's photograph and I put it in there, and sure enough, about 18 different websites popped up where she's on, from cam websites to pornography websites, where they were taking the content that they were filming on these cam websites, uploading it. And so we tracked her down to all these websites, but whoever has her, they do everything via the computer. There's never any phone numbers listed. There's never anything trackable listed. They run it through dummy accounts. So we know she's being exploited, but she's 21, and even when we find her, and we're going to find her, if she doesn't ask for help, there's not much we're going to be able to do. So that's the thing. So we're working on locating her right now, but we wind up with a lot of those cases because law enforcement doesn't really take them. They seem as kind of a, not necessarily a waste of time, but it's a lot of resources to get to these girls, talk to them, and try to build these cases, whereas the minors are pretty cut and dry. But we do see a lot of the minor stuff as well, and the minor stuff that we run into usually stems from runaway girls, kids that go missing. We just had a case, and I can send you the link. It was in the Broward County News last year. It started as a 14-year-old chronic runaway. The family calls us and says, "Hey, listen, you know, she's this is the 10th time that month she'd run away." They said she usually runs to her boyfriend's house. If you just go and knock on the door and tell her to come home, she usually comes home, and then she'll just run away again 48 hours later. So we had some guys that were in the area, so we sent a team of ours up to Broward, and we went and knocked on the boyfriend's door. And my guys call me and they say, "Hey man, listen, there's something that's not right about this. She's not here. This guy's acting squirrely." Fast forward 14 hours later, we found her at the home of a 68-year-old man, where he had been having sex with her and filming it for the last about 4 days. And he was even bringing in older women to teach her what he liked. Now, lucky for us on the law enforcement end of things, this guy was dumb enough to videotape everything and keep it at his house. So when they seized his computer, they found images of this girl, the videos, along with, I think, 4 other minors. And then the subsequent investigation turned out that the two 21, one was 21 and one was 23. The two quote unquote boyfriends actually traded her to this guy for drugs, and that's how she wound up there. So we see it all over the map, from the 12, 13, 14-year olds to, you know, the older women as well.
Whoa, is there a way? I have so many questions. Is there a way, like, say, you know, because you said if they're, you know, over 18, they have to basically ask for help, but is there like a code way they could ask for help if they, you know what I mean, if they're under duress?
So this is one of the things, and this is why we spend so much time training law enforcement. This is why we do so many conferences around the year. We're trying to teach law enforcement a different way to do this, right? Because the traditional way, and if you talk to a lot of the old school guys that have been in law enforcement for many years, when they see these girls at the hotels or on the street, they see a criminal, right? They see a crackhead. They see somebody that signs up for this. They don't see a victim. And so we're trying to change a couple of things. We're trying to change how law enforcement views these girls, and then we're trying to change how law enforcement operates. And we come at it from, me and my team, a majority of us all come from the intelligence world. So we view things differently than law enforcement views them. A lot of times with law enforcement, if there's not a conviction, if there's no way they can build a case, they're not interested and they don't have the time to continue. and it's nothing against them, but their entire job is built around getting convictions. It's built around all of that. And right now we're in a world where law enforcement is so stretched for resources that they've got to put the resources where the resources are going to do good. And that's one of the reasons why we exist, is to try to help them get those resources so they don't have to maybe spend as much time building some of these more complex cases, and we can kind of hand it to them and say, hey, listen, run with it, here it is. So we're trying to get them to see, when they see these girls at the hotels, when they see these girls on the streets, to see a victim. Now in Florida, we're making a lot of progress with that. We've got the safe haven law, where it gives law enforcement discretion on how to treat these girls. We work with them on, listen, when you guys do the reverse stings, right, and the hotel stings, and you guys get these girls in the room, there's psychological ways. So I come from the interview and interrogation world, and there's psychological ways to kind of deal with people on different levels. So a lot of times what you'll get is you'll get these girls in a room with all these cops, usually men, big guys. They've got guns, they've got badges, and they got these girls handcuffed behind their back, and they put them in a chair, and then while the girl's sitting there, they'll stand up and they'll look down on the girl, and it's a very intimidating situation. It's hard to build a rapport. So we work with them on techniques on, listen, you got a room full of cops. These girls are really tiny. Pat them down, make sure they don't have any weapons. If you got to handcuff them, sometimes you don't even have to, but if you have to, if your protocol says you have to, why don't you handcuff them in the front? And then when you sit down, instead of standing up over them, pull up a chair and sit next to them. That way you're on the same eye level. And we try to work with them on techniques like that. We try to make them understand that, in the over a decade I've been doing this, I've never once encountered a girl that woke up and said, man, I want to be a prostitute. I want to be trafficked. There's no girl in America that wakes up and says that. And so, we try to teach them to take the time to get to know these girls, get to build a rapport, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, it costs $0 to be a decent human being. So that's number one. Number two, it's going to pay dividends in the long run when you can start building a rapport. Because the other thing that gets frustrating with law enforcement is this: a lot of these girls, they get involved in this life, they're going to go back and forth. They're going to come in and go out of the life, come in and go out of the life, and they're going to go back to the life on average about 7 times before they hit rock bottom, right? And before they decide that they want out. And rock bottom for these girls, one of the reasons why it gets so frustrating for a lot of people to deal with is because a lot of us that come from normal backgrounds, we would think that, man, living in a hotel, being forced to have sex with X amount of men a week, a night, being beaten if you don't give it, that sounds like rock bottom to a lot of people. Unfortunately, these traffickers are smart, right? They know how to select girls, and they know how to select girls that come from horrible places. And so the crazy part is, hey, listen, I might get beat once a week, but I still get to drive a Ferrari because I made all this money. We actually interviewed a girl on a case. They were living in a multi-million-dollar mansion in Fort Lauderdale, and we sat down to interview them with Homeland Security, and we've actually got videos of this one girl leaving the emergency room with a shattered eye socket. And when we asked her, explain to us why this is okay for you, explain why you stay. And she says, I grew up in a home where I got beat all the time anyway. And on top of that, my stepdad used to sexually assault me. And she's like, yeah, sometimes when I get out of line, I get beat. But she's like, I drive a Range Rover and I live in a mansion, so it's better than where I came from. And so it's a really twisted psychology that you've got to learn to deal with. And we're trying to teach law enforcement how to navigate all of that, and how to accept the fact that you're not going to help everybody, right? So for every girl that you encounter, you're going to maybe actually be able to get 1 out of 10, 1 out of 12 actually out of the life. But it doesn't mean that you can't use the other girls and build a rapport with them and have them help you save lives. I've got girls that we've encountered years ago that they've not hit their rock bottom yet. They're not ready to leave, but because we've been able to build trust with them, I still get phone calls every once in a while saying, "Hey, Trent, listen, there's a baby out here. You need to come get her." And so while that particular girl wasn't ready to leave the life, she's still saving lives of other girls. So we're trying to get law enforcement to kind of switch their view on how they gather intelligence, how they deal with intelligence, how to play the long game instead of the short game, but then also the psychology of how to treat these girls and how to treat them as human beings and victims and not criminals, and the dregs of society that we have often treated them like in the past. So that's kind of one of the things that we're working on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And again, thank you for all you do. Do you guys get boys?
So oddly enough, we rarely get boys, and it's not because boys don't get trafficked. It's just we've never come across a case. Now there was a big case of male trafficking in Miami-Dade County a few years ago, and a couple of the Homeland Security agents that we work with actually worked the case. They got, man, I think it was like 27 or 28 Guatemalan men that were being forced to work out in the fields in South Dade. They were picking strawberries for, I want to say, like 5 cents a flat is all they were being paid. And then the guys, the farm, the quote unquote farm that brought them over here was taking the rest of the money for, they call it room and board. And they were essentially making like $5 a flat. But that ended up being a big labor trafficking case. And with the men, we see it usually ends up being more of a labor trafficking situation. Now there is a place in Miami that we've been working on for a while. We've just never been able to build anything substantial out of there. It's an adult bookstore that deals in the alternative lifestyles. And we know that they've been preying on the LGBTQ boys, mostly there. And we've had a couple of cases there that fell apart, and we weren't able to get anything, but we're still trying to figure out that place and what we're going to do. But boys for us are a very rare thing. In fact, we don't even get many runaway boys. We just found, if you look on our Facebook page, we actually just recovered a runaway 14, 15-year-old boy up in Leesburg a couple days ago. And that's one of the only runaway boys we've even ever dealt with.
Wow. So do you, is there, I guess, I'm trying to understand it all. Is there like a place, like a safe house or a place that they go to kind of decompress or just, before
so every case
to their next step?
Every case is different, right? So this is also where we differ a little bit from law enforcement, but we've been really blessed because a lot of the local law enforcement and the federal folks that we work with, we're all starting to get on the same page of a victim-centered approach where the first priority is making sure that the victim is okay, and that their needs are met, everything's met. And then that's also like one of the things that we're working with them on how to talk to them is, when you sit down and talk with these girls, the first words out of your mouth shouldn't be about the case. The first words out of your mouth should be, "Are you hungry? Can I get you some food?" Because a lot of times food is used as leverage against these girls. So we're trying to get a more victim-centered approach. So the first question we always ask these girls when they're ready to talk about the case is, do you want to prosecute? Do you want to even make a statement? And we're trying to get more creative about trying to build cases using other things, right? So usually the human trafficking world collides with drug trafficking and weapons trafficking. So if we can build a case on one of those and we don't have to put this young lady through the traumatization of having to relive this in a trial, then we don't. We try to avoid that. So It depends on a lot of things. So the first thing we always ask them is do you want to prosecute? Do you want to build a case? And then we work with law enforcement, whether it's the locals, whether it's the federal folks, whatever, whoever's got jurisdiction. And then we decide. Usually, if the girl wants to prosecute, we will work with one of the local safe houses. If she doesn't want to prosecute, then we will get her to a safe location, either near her family, near people that can help them, a support system. But we're very picky about the safe houses that we work with. We do a lot of research. We make sure, number one, that the bad guys haven't infiltrated the safe house, because that happens a lot. And we are very cautious of, like, working with certain programs, because I'll give you an example. I love the faith-based community. Their hearts are bigger than anybody's, and they are so helpful. The problem is they sometimes don't see the clinical side of things with this, right? And so, for instance, we had a church in South Florida that had a bunch of beds for HT victims, but the problem was, to be part of this program, you had to pray with them 3 times a day. That was like the requirement. And I sat down with the pastor, and I explained to him. I said, Pastor, I said, listen, your program is fantastic. I said, but here's the problem. You can't tell these girls they have to pray with you 3 times a day, because you have to understand where they're coming from. They're coming from a world where they've been told when they're going to sleep, when they're going to eat, when they're going to do this, when they're going to shower, a world where they've been controlled every aspect of their life. I said, now, if you want to phrase it, we're going to pray this time every day. If you would like to join us, that would be great. We can do that. But we can't, from a psychological standpoint, tell them you have to do this or you can't be part of the program, because now we just become another person that has put restrictions on them. So for reasons like that, we research the safe houses that we send them to, and we've got a network of different places around the country that we work with, and we want to make sure that, like, when we get to a safe house, that um, they've got proper medical care, they've got proper psychological care, and they have programs that will help these young ladies get back on their feet. It's not just, oh, here's a roof over your head and 3 square meals a day. Best of luck. These girls need a lot of help rebuilding their lives,
Yeah.
and so we try to make sure that we get them to a space where they can do that, and a space that gives them the best option to do that. Luckily, in Florida, there's a lot of good places. There's some places over in the Gainesville area, that do a really good job. There's a couple places over in Tampa that do a really good job. South Florida is really hurting for good places, unfortunately. There's just really not places there that I feel comfortable putting girls. We work with a couple places in North Carolina and Texas as well, and we just try to make sure we get them to locations where they've got a shot to rebuild their life, because we don't want to put them in a situation where they start to fail and they wind up back in this life. So that's kind of how we work our safe house network. I've got a victim services coordinator. Her name is Kim, and she takes care of researching all those safe houses for us. Not just the safe houses, but the programs, the medical programs, attorneys that we work with. And recently we've run into some unique situations as far as having to relocate families. I'll give you an example. A couple years ago, oh man, it's not a couple years ago now. It'd be 2019, so it'd be 4 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun. We brought a girl home from Mexico dead, Puerto Peñasco, Mexico. We're still involved in the case. So is the FBI out in Arizona. The problem is the bad guys are in Mexico, and in order for us to do what we needed to do in Mexico, we could not have the family still living in Tucson, because Tucson is a stone's throw away from the border. We were worried about retaliation. So we actually moved the family we relocated the family from Tucson to a safe location in the Midwest. And that turned out to be a disaster. The moving company destroyed all their stuff,
Oh,
uh, charged a whole ton of money, took advantage of the situation. So now one of the other programs we're looking at starting is developing a network where if we've got a family like that that's a victim, because we're starting to run into, especially in Arizona and Texas, we're running into a lot more of that, where we've got entire families that have been victimized by the cartel. And it usually starts with one of their children being lured into trafficking. And so having to relocate them to new places for their own safety. So we're working on building a program that's going to be able to do that as well after this last experience. So that's another thing that we're working on building for the future, because that turned into be a much bigger nightmare than unfortunately the moving company that we hired really took advantage of the situation, and it was just a very they re-traumatized the family. It was a very bad experience. So we've learned from that, and we're going to do things differently now moving forward.
wow. Well, it's like, right, your best intentions keep leading to more issues.
Yep.
Um, so logistically, okay, so Arbonne, we have, personal care products like, um, cosmetics and skincare and body care and hair care and, nutrition kind of items too. But if we put together some kind of package where, it had like toiletries for shower and body lotion and deodorant and toothpaste, and I don't know, is that something that you think would be helpful? Or I mean, we could
So
even put in some cosmetics or whatever. I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to like think what would make someone feel special, what would make someone feel, you know, at at home instead of, just
so
something special.
one of the programs that we're actually working on getting restarted, and this is actually like twofold on what you're talking about. One of the programs we're working on getting restarted. So, and we just ran out of volunteers to run this program, which is why we had to stop it. Is our street outreach program, and this program we used it for a couple of things. It was mostly to make contact with girls and get our information, and give the girls on the street a safe out. So what we would do is we would have bags of exactly what you said: beauty products, hygiene products, things like that. We would go out to the motels, to the streets, to some of the nightclubs where they worked, and we would hand them the bags, ask them if they're doing okay, if there's anything they needed, and then inside that bag we had a card, usually of we lost our beauty store that we used to work with on this too, so we got to find a new beauty shop. And what we would do is it would be a legitimate, usually a hairdresser store or a beauty shop that we had gone to and made this arrangement. And we would use their address and we would put together a little business card, but the phone number would be a burner phone number that would go to us. And if the girls ever wanted out, they could call that phone number and let us know, hey, listen, this is what's going on. And it would go to a generic voicemail. So everything that they had would check out. So the whole point was if their pimp or their trafficker found them with that card, they usually wouldn't think twice about it because it's a beauty store card and they're there all the time. Whereas if they found them with one of our cards, they usually probably get beat, if not killed. So it was a way that we were able to make contact with the girls and give them an out without putting them in danger. And so we're looking at starting that program up again. So bags with stuff like that we can drop a card like that in would be immensely helpful. And then the other flip side of that are bags that we can kind of give these girls to help start their life over again would be helpful. For instance, this young lady we're bringing back from Mexico, she's got 2 kids now. When she left, she was 16. She's 26 years old now. We're going to get her back here to the States. Shouldn't have anything. And so just a little something to give girls like that a fresh start, to make them feel special, to let them know that somebody cares. And that would be immensely helpful.
Would it be appropriate? I know my wheels are turning. This is good. Would it be appropriate, like if there was like a handwritten note or just something, and just to like you're cared about, you're valued, whatever, something.
Absolutely, and you could put it in there is and you can put it in there from the company and just say something generic. Listen, the employees at Arbonne, uh, are thinking about you, or doing something like that. All that stuff is very useful for the girls, because a lot of times they just don't feel like they've got anything, and unfortunately, a lot of times they don't have much of a support system. They don't have anybody that they feel cares about them, or gives a rat's rear end, which is one of the reasons why we're going to start this program back up. That program was immensely helpful in helping us gather intel, because it took a while, and we're going to have to start the cycle back up again. But it took a while for the word about the beauty card to get out. Right? Listen, if you need help, this card you can call. And then it got to the point there for a while, girls would take the card, and if they knew a girl needed help, they would say, "Hey, here, listen, give it a call." And so we had a special cell phone that either myself or one of our other guys would carry around all the time. It was by our side 24/7, and we knew that if that phone ever rang, that that was the number from the beauty card, and that you needed to answer that phone, no matter, doesn't matter what time of the day it is.
Nice. Mia or Robin, do you guys have any questions or anything to add?
Hi. Hi there. I do. First of all, thank you so much for what you do. I'm like trying not to cry listening to these stories. And it's not the first time I've heard these things. I have two teenage daughters, and a few years ago, my daughter snuck out of her friend's house, and they tried to like hitchhike to a McDonald's, and it prompted me to get a hold of someone who ran a safe house. I'd known some people that were big into helping with human trafficking. They were on a task force, and I brought her here to tell the girls to teach them about human trafficking and how it works. And it was so powerful. So I'm very understanding of like what goes on. And I wonder how much, because at the time, a few years ago, I felt like law enforcement just wasn't aware of what was going on. I feel like a lot of people don't understand what's going on. Are people more up to speed with all of this that's going on? And I'm in Florida too. Are we like the number 2 hub or something like that for human trafficking?
Number 3 right now, as it sits, and the most disgusting part about all that is, I'll give you a guess. What do you think the number 1 city in the state of Florida is for human trafficking? If you had to guess.
I would guess Miami.
I would guess Miami.
Most people would, right? No, it's Orlando.
Oh,
And the reason
Wow.
is,
That just gave me chills. Ugh.
the reason is because there's a lot of men that take their family to Disney during the day, and then will sneak out and go buy girls out on Orange Blossom Trail at night.
Well, and think about it. That's where they go for conferences, big conferences.
And the reason you don't hear about it is because Disney pays a lot of money to make sure that that information
Oh,
gets out.
thank you for saying that. That's a rude awakening, but thank you for that. Wow.
To make sure that doesn't happen.
Wow.
And to answer your question about law enforcement's, they're trying, and the problem that we've got right now is law enforcement's having a lot of staffing problems. It used to be a job people would flock to, and now, given the environment and the way the world is, not a lot of people are signing up to be cops anymore. We just got back from Arizona, where we helped with Super Bowl human trafficking operations out there. The Phoenix Police Department is 400 bodies short. 400.
Wow.
That's 1 or 2 people in a squad car. That's 400 people short. And so and that's not unique to them. I mean, law enforcement agencies all over the country are They're short-staffed and they're under budgeted, but they're making a lot of progress. I'll say this: the Broward County Sheriff's Office is making huge strides with human trafficking. They've got an HT group full of young detectives that really want to make a difference, and they're doing really good work. So Broward Sheriff's Office is doing a really good job. Homeland Security in Broward is amazing with this stuff. The special agent in charge there is a woman that I've worked with for well over a decade. One of the best federal agents I've ever met in my life, anywhere in the world, who heads up the Broward Homeland Security Task Force. And they're doing great things. So law enforcement is making strides, and one of the things we're doing is we're really stepping up our training efforts. We're working with a group called the International Association of Human Trafficking Investigators. They're one of our partnership groups, and we work with them and do trainings all over the country as many times as we can to try to teach law enforcement how to work these cases, how to build these cases, how to work with victims. And so, that's, like I said, that's what we're doing in DC, in Ocean City, Maryland. Next week, we're training about 300 or 400 law enforcement from up and down the East Coast, everywhere from New York all the way down into Maryland and down into the Carolinas. So that's law enforcement is making strides, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. And most of that is not because we don't have good cops that want to do this. It's because of budgetary concerns. They just don't have the money to do a lot of the things that need to be done in this world. Like, for instance, the tech space and online stuff. We're fortunate that as a nonprofit, we're able to go to some of these tech companies and get access to some really cool technology, usually for free. Now, some of it we have to pay for, but some of it we get for free. This one program that we just got, it's an intelligence-based platform that I've only ever seen anything like it in the military, but they've got a civilian version, and they make it available to law enforcement, but it's $50,000 a year for a license. We have access to that for free. And so there are a lot of cases that, law enforcement will call us. They know we've got access to technology like that, and they'll ask us if we can come in and use some of our technology to kind of help fill their gap, because they just don't have the resources to do it. And, we're working on trying to build more resources. Our hope is to have, and this is like a 5-year plan, but our hope is in the next 5 years to have enough revenue coming in from fundraising and things like that to have a team of people that do this full time, that we can travel on a moment's notice with all the technology, everything that we need, to whatever location that we need to go to assist law enforcement. Along with that 5-year plan, to be able to have a full-time team is a tech center we're developing, because the reality is, unless you're the FBI, or unless you're one of probably 2 or 3 super huge local agencies like NYPD, LAPD, your tech resources are usually very limited, and not just the hardware, software, but people with the background to run that stuff, the qualified people to run it. So one of the other things that we're working on is building a tech center that's staffed with experts and has technology that nobody else does, that we will make available to law enforcement for absolutely free all over the country. All they got to do is call us and say, hey, listen, we need help. And they can come to us, we'll go to them. But we're trying to help fill some of those resources and the gap in resources that they have because of budgeting restrictions and everything else. Obviously, we're not a huge operation. We don't have an unlimited budget, but we try to take what resources we do have and fill a lot of those gaps. In fact, one of the reasons why I'm up here in Pennsylvania right now is because the local police department could not afford to travel a detective up here to do interviews. So they didn't even have the money for a plane ticket. So that's why I'm up here.
Wow.
So it's stuff like that that we try to do and that's why the motto of our organization is standing in the void of justice, because we try to fill those voids.
Yeah, that's amazing. I read that on your website. I thought it was a powerful mission statement. Standing
Yep.
in the void of justice. Yes. So back to, all right, if we can come up with some care packages, I'm so glad that's something that could benefit you, and you could, put your card and information in there for them. And so what would be like a great target goal? Like 100 care packages, or
100 would be a good starting point. 100 would be a good starting point, because that would be enough that I could then take them, divide them up, and send them to different parts of the country where we have volunteer teams. So,
oh, that's so cool. Okay.
yep, yeah, because
So,
we're based out of Florida. We work cases obviously all over the country, but we have actual licenses in Florida, Texas, and Arizona. So I spend a ton of time in all three of those states.
so is there like if so we could get them to you?
You get them to me, and I can get them wherever they need to go.
Okay. All right. We'll do it that way. Okay. Well, we're going to brainstorm on this, and we'll keep in touch for sure.
Okay.
Robin, did you have anything you wanted to add or say or ask? Or I know she's been listening. Oh, wait, you're here.
There I am. No, everything sounds great. I applaud all the work that you're doing, Trent. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have two daughters. I have one in the city of Pittsburgh and one in Myrtle Beach, and she has had things attached to her car because she works on on the beach in she's a senior in college, and so she works on the beach, and she's found things on her car. My girls are very aware of the trafficking that goes on in these cities. So I appreciate and trying to help get these girls to realize that they are worthy. They're worth something.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the important thing, right? Oftentimes, we get these girls out of there, and it's like, oh well, on to the next one, and we lose track, and we forget to let them know, listen, there's life after this, there's chance.
Mhm.
And we work when we travel with the International Association of Human Trafficking Investigators and do these trainings. We work with two fantastic survivors. They're two of the best presenters I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca Bender and Rebecca Charleston are their names, and they were both trafficked through Las Vegas and have some very interesting stories. But I try to like, we've got a girl that we helped now, and this is one of my favorite stories. She's actually in the middle of her first year of law school at NYU. So those are my favorite stories, when I can check on girls years down the road and find out that they're doing well.
Yeah.
And that this was just an unfortunate blip on their radar, but it didn't define who they are or what they're able to do for the rest of their life.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll definitely keep in touch if you have presentations or something coming up where we would be able to attend. We'd love to do that too.
We're actually doing one. You know what? I'll have to shoot you the dates. We're doing one in Miami for a group of private schools and a nonprofit called For the Girls, or This Is the Girl. I forget what it is. But we're presenting to, like, they said like 300 girls, all the way from junior high to high school. So I'll let you know, and if you guys happen to be in the area in Miami, you're more than happy to have you swing by the event and check out the presentation.
Yeah,
I would be interested in that, Tammy, if we could go together.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And also, is there anything we can do? Like, I know, Trent, you said you're going to be in Naples. Like, or is there any kind of volunteer group that you have that can help? I'm sure they have to have an extreme background check and all that stuff.
So we've got a bunch of different volunteer things that we do. So We've got obviously the investigation team, and our victim services team, and those are the only two parts of our organization that have requirements. So we asked that anybody on the investigation side of the house be prior law enforcement, at least 5 years, or prior intelligence world, at least 5 years. And then on the victim services side, we require people to have a background in social work or working with victims of crime. But then we also have we've got our community awareness teams that we do, like these street outreaches. We're looking to start one of those in every city around the country. So we're looking to start a street outreach team in the Naples area. I've actually got one of the guys that I work, and I'd be happy to introduce you to him. One of my investigators, who's he's become like a brother to me. I actually worked with him. He's a former FBI agent. He was actually my, I can talk about it now because he's not there anymore. He was my handler when he worked at the FBI. And we worked a lot of organized crime trafficking cases together. He's no longer with the Bureau. He lives over in Estero now.
Near me. Okay.
So he lives over in Estero now. So I can get you introduced to him. He's a fantastic guy. His name is Tim. But we've got the community outreach teams. We've got volunteer opportunities in the fundraising side of the house for anybody that wants to work on fundraising. And then we've also got volunteer stuff. We've got a clothing line that we use to help kind of fund all of this. It's called Apparel, and it's like an anti-slavery, freedom-based clothing line where aside from obviously the overhead, the sales go to support what we're doing. So we've got volunteer opportunities for marketing with that, for social media with that, all sorts of stuff. So whatever you're interested in doing, let me know. I never turn down volunteer help. We can never get enough of it.
How do
Okay. Well, if I could, I'm sorry, I just want to say, if I could get maybe your number, Trent,
Yeah.
Tammy could share your information with me and we can kind of just brainstorm, or I'll just give you my name. Yeah. This is something I've been wanting to do for years, actually. And I tried to get involved with another group that helps out here, and it just never panned out. But yeah, I would love to help in any way I can.
I don't ever turn down volunteer help, because there's always something to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Okay, great.
Is the apparel link within the website?
It is. It's I think so. Stand by. Hold on.
Okay. Because we can share that for sure.
This is kind of the stuff that I probably should know, and I've got a really good volunteer that does our website stuff. And let's see here. Whammo. The internet at this hotel is not fantastic. Let's see here. Oh yeah, it is. It's down under the sponsors, the sponsors tab. So all of the sponsors, if you just click on the apparel link, it'll take you to the apparel website, so you can kind of see stuff. And we're getting ready to make a bunch of updates there. We got some new designs that our designer just came up with that we're going to post. We got some new hats and stuff that we're going to release. We're actually getting ready to post a commission-based brand manager job for that, so that somebody can spend more hours a week, because I think we probably leave a lot of money on the table with that, just simply because right now I'm kind of a one-man show, and so I do a little bit of everything, and so we're trying to get somebody that can focus on that full time. So but yeah, it's on the website.
Well, your passion and your heart shines through. It sounds like you do wear a ton of hats, and again, it just makes me so grateful that you could take the time to just explain all of this and share some of the stories. And yeah, we definitely want to be connected and collaborate, and we're so excited, honestly so excited that you enlightened us to your mission, and we're just going to keep adding more hearts and more passion and to the cause here, because it's important and it matters. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and share my information with anybody. My cell phone grows out of my ear, so if anybody ever needs to talk, has a question, call me. You know, I'm always happy to talk, always happy to chat with anybody. So please just let me know. If there's ever anything I can do for you guys, please let me know. I'll let you know what date we're doing that presentation for that other group, and we can go from there.
Right. Thank you, Trent.
Absolutely.
So honored to talk to you tonight. Thank you.
Oh, this has been great. You guys, listen, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. You guys have a fantastic
Thank you.
evening.
You too,
Absolutely.
Trent. Thank you so much.
Thanks
No,
so much.
Bye-bye.